What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. It has been a while since we've done one of these, a full discography album ranking. It's been even longer since we've done one this big. 40 albums coming to you today from Prince. It was a lot to listen to. Had to go back and take notes. Had some stuff come up that got in the way, so it took even longer than I thought it would. So it's finally happening. And yeah, this was quite the adventure. I knew a decent amount of Prince going in. I never had like a huge Prince phase. He was never someone I was super into or anything, but I can say confidently that I've heard everything through the 80s for sure at some point along the way. Heard all of those. I also know that I definitely heard Musicology and 3121 when they came out. Maybe a couple of the other newer ones when they were released, but I don't really have specific memories of those. And I knew some of the singles and things from the 90s, but that's about it. That's kind of where I'm coming in at.
I think people know I'm a big Prince fan. I had a bunch of his records in my top fives. We're doing album of the year, Dirty Mind, Purple Rain, Parade, Sign of the Times. They were all in there. But for as much as I love Prince, I never really went past the early 90s. I never had a hankering to explore deep into Prince's discography. I was pretty happy just re-listening to the 80s stuff over and over and over and over again. So a lot of these were new to me, which was interesting. And while Jason was struggling through it, I was deep making my top 150 favorite songs of Prince. So I should tell you a little something about how I feel about many of these albums.
I will say, if you've never seen our channel before, we listen to an artist. Sometimes we like them, sometimes we don't. So we're not here to fanboy. We just give our honest opinions about whatever it is that we listen to. So I think what I know about the general consensus on Prince, I think this is one of my crazier lists in channel history. I expect people to be upset about it and mad at me, but it kind of is what it is.
Well, I think that's good because we need some more of that dynamic now that, since Crams are left. We've been at two in sync in a lot of these, so it'll be good to have one where we are just totally at odds. I feel like mine's going to be pretty normal. Spoiler. Come on. But I really am excited to see what what you do with this because 40 albums and a lot of different eras and a lot of different styles, it really could just go anyway. I have no idea. I'm assuming you're going to have something from the 80s at your number one, probably Purple Rain, but other than that, I have no friggin' clue.
Okay, here we go. So, we should also state he's got kind of a complicated discography, um, posthumous stuff, weird releases that were only available through his club and download only things. And so basically, we're going with what was listed on Wikipedia. It ended up being 40 albums. We are including one posthumous release because it was made intended to be a studio album, even though it was shelved. Some of the other posthumous stuff that's come out has been more like compilation of stuff from the vault. So yeah, that's where we got our list from, and that's what we're counting. So number 40 for me, the worst Prince album is The Truth from 1998. This was meant to be disc 4 of Crystal Ball. Yeah, more Crystal Ball. That's exactly what we needed. This one's different than the rest of Crystal Ball, though. This is all acoustic stuff. There's a little bit of other instrumentation here and there, some percussion stuff that comes in, but this is mostly Prince and an acoustic guitar, and it is extremely bad, I think. I think the songwriting here is awful. The lyrics are embarrassing. He says, "The choice you make ain't no piece of cake." It ain't no motherfucking piece of pie. I think being exposed with just the acoustic guitar shows how bad his lyrics are. If there was just one day that everybody told the truth, we'd all trade bank accounts and move back to Neptune. What? It's just some of the worst coffee shop amateur songwriting that I've heard. Third Eye has some of the dumbest lyrics I've ever heard too. Animal Kingdom is an embarrassing attempt to convince people to go vegan. Throughout the whole thing, it feels like he's like on his high horse with the messaging, and it's got this like hippie beatnik presentation that feels so pretentious, and he doesn't back up the pretentiousness at all with any kind of good songs. So uh, I'm at 1 star for that. It's very bad. My number 39 is Hit and Run Phase 1. Just bad songs, worse production. Every crummy trend that he could have pulled from the modern pop of the time is thrown onto this record. There's EDM, like dubstep sounds, sub bass. It just really sounds bad. Fall in Love Tonight is horrendous. You've got a guest vocal from Judith Hill, who at one point the industry really seemed to want to turn into a star, but she never quite made it. He has a couple of these records where he really feels like he's trying to like get in step with the times, and almost all of them are failures. So 1 star for that one. Number 38, I've got Crystal Ball. This one, a triple album. Not his first triple album either. This one is mostly like previously bootlegged material compared to the other triple album right before it. I think this one has some higher highs, but some lower lows as well. In fact, quite a few lower lows. Chlorine Bacon Skin never needed to be released. Definitely didn't need a P Control remix to be on there. I think Poom Poom is a good contender for his worst song ever. She Gave Her Angels, I think, is a decent ballad, though. Strays of the World, that one's another good kind of like gospel-y ballad. But I think the bad stuff here far outweighs the good. It's way too long. There's no album flow or consistency to it. So just kind of a waste of time. 1.5 stars for Crystal Ball. My number 37 is Emancipation, the other triple album. He finally gets free from Warner Brothers. You think, man, yes, we're finally going to get to hear his true artistic vision and without any label tampering. And what he gives you is just like this blob of the most middle of the road R&B. The production feels really stuck in the early 90s. On some of the tracks, it even sounds like really cheap and like worse than the things he had been doing before. Specifically on something like Court in Time. I think that's a good example of where it sounds just terrible. He's covering songs for the first time, but not really doing any of them very well. There's a Savion Glover tap solo in one of the songs. There's backing vocals on Kate Bush on a song, which you can't really even tell it's her. It's like this weird song about finding love on the internet in 1996. It's not that it's that much worse than his previous stuff, but it's just soul-crushingly long, and almost nothing rises to the surface as being like standout. So yeah, just 2 stars for Emancipation. Number 36 for me is 1990's Graffiti Bridge. This one was attached to another movie, which I've never even seen a clip of, I don't think. So I don't know what's up with the movie, but the record's not too good. Can't Stop This Feeling, I've got, sounds like an updating of Footloose a little bit for the 90s. And the rest of it sounds like 90s Nickelodeon. Like you almost half expect him to like have a cover of Wild and Crazy Kids on here. Just the sounds are so goofy. A lot of songs from previous sessions were pulled and updated for this. Considering that, he did a decent job of making sure everything sounded uniformly synthetic and terrible. All I can picture listening to this is like somebody in huge zebra stripe hammer pants and giant gold chains.
Well, that was much worse than I expected. That is lunacy, that ranking, but that's all right. I get it, I guess. For me, totally different. I'm at the bottom with The Slaughterhouse, or just Slaughterhouse. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's his 40th best album. Extreme fans only. I don't count myself big enough of a Prince fan to listen to this album again. I listened to it once, one of the few that I was one and done with. This was originally just sent to the people in the NPG fan club. I probably would have quit the fan club if he had sent this to me back in 2004. 39, I'm going to go with Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic, which did not like. I gave it one listen and I just, no, thank you. This was the label wanting to, Santanify Prince, want that big comeback. This is around Supernatural. So they figured, let's do it with Prince. Bunch of guest stars, pop numbers, trying to resuscitate his career. I don't think it worked, though. It didn't sell very well. And the guest stars, you got Chuck D, Eve, Sheryl Crow. Don't add anything to the music at all. They're just not, it's weird. They're just not on Prince's wavelength at all. They just sound like they're being forced upon each other. The Gwen Stefani collab is probably the best track on the album. You can barely hear Gwen Stefani on it. So I think that helps. The Every Day is a Winding Road cover sucks. And it's just a really bad album in general. 2 stars for that. 2 stars for Slaughterhouse too. Number 38, I'm going to go up to 2.5 stars, but I did not enjoy the posthumous Welcome to America. Came out in 2021. Just thought the lyrics weren't great. It probably just should have stayed shelved. That one, he didn't want to release it, so he made the smart choice, but his estate decided to release it. We'll get more. We'll get better posthumous albums than that, I'm hoping. Number 37, I'm going to go with News, which I don't think you could tell if this was a Prince album if you didn't know, if it wasn't on the cover. Light jazz. This is during his weird jazzy phase, kind of after Rave Unto the Joy bombed. He's like, all right, I'm going to be a jazz man now. And this one has 4 tracks, North, East, West, and yes, South. And it's cool. It's improvisational, which is interesting, but it's mostly just kind of smooth new age jazz. North is probably the best one. It has some cool electric guitar on it, but it's just so unnecessary of an album. And number 36, I'm gonna go with Artificial Age, released at the same time as Plectrum Electrum, which was more rocking. This one, more R&B, more funk. He's a Jehovah's Witness at this point, and the lyrics just don't hit. Like there's no dirty mind and stuff here. Like that sexy sensuality, just not here. The slow jams are kind of man. The lyrics are a little awkward. Breakfast Can Wait should have been like if Camille, if he'd done like the Camille stuff, 1987, I think it would have worked, but his updated chipmunk voice ain't doing it for me here. I think the second half's better. This could be Us, Way Back Home time. Decent, but I'm still at 2.5. So, couple lousy albums, some twos, some 2.5s, but everything else, 3 stars and up.
All right, my number 35 coming in at 2 stars still with Love Symbol from 1992. This is a fantasy rock soap opera with Kirstie Alley playing a reporter named Vanessa Bartholomew. In the album Segues, there's a guest rap spot from Carmen Electra. And I mean, just that, the Kirstie Alley and the Carmen Electra, you tell me that about the album, and I'm good. I don't really think I need to listen to it. And yeah, that's basically how it plays out. I used to think that Prince had like really cool lyrics. He was like very bold and, all the sexual stuff and that character that he kind of played. And I think maybe for a while that was working, but it just gets out of hand in the 90s. I think uh, some of it is just, I don't know, tough. And I think he gets a pass because he's Prince, but if anyone else was singing these lyrics, people would be uh, shocked and appalled. And it's not even the shock factor, they're just not good lyrics. From the tip of my typhoon to the bottom of your ankle chains is a ridiculous thing to put in a song. My favorite on this record, don't look now, but there's a river of blood. You must have been a virgin. What am I guilty of? Are you afraid? Then take me to the next phase. I mean, I get why people are like interested in it because it takes like such an insane amount of confidence to say those things, but yeah, I think we're giving him a little too much leeway on some of these. It does have a few moments that exceed other things from this era. Love to the Nines is pretty good. Morning Papers I think is decent too. There's some ripping guitar on that track, which there's way too little of usually in his catalog. Sweet Baby is decent. Damn You I think is fine. Some of the live instrumentation R&B stuff works. The hip hop stuff though, just not my bag, and even if it was, I don't think it's very believable coming from Prince and Tony M. All right, my 34, kind of in the same vein, I've got Diamonds and Pearls. This is kind of like after Graffiti Bridge and kind of like the silly, goofy McDonald's commercial energy of that record. He kind of trades that in for like a darker, sexier image, a little more of like a full embrace of hip hop. And I don't know. I'm not into this sound to begin with. All the like the drum machines and the synth bass, all the corny synth stabs. Um, one thing that made me laugh about this is that in the credits, he credits himself with like playing all the instruments. Like he lists out everything he plays, and it is impressive. But I like that he gave himself credit for playing finger cymbals, which is like talk about padding your stats. As far as the songs on this go, Cream is decent, but it's an obvious rewrite of Bang a Gone Get It On. He even like throws in the You're Filthy and Cute, which is kind of like a play on the You're Dirty and Sweet, little tip of the cap. But most of the stuff on this record, all of the, yeah, I'm not a fan. 2 stars. All right, one of the later ones that I'm not a big fan of, and that Joe also had near his bottom, is my 33, Artificial Age. This is a concept album about a guy waking up 45 years in the future or something like that. It was released at the same time as Plectrum Electrum, but no Third Eye Girl on this record. This is just a solo effort. It starts really rough. The first song on it sounds like a Pitbull track or something. Leanne La Havas is on the second track, Clouds. I like her, but that song is basically a big nothing burger for me. I think Breakdown could have been a decent song, but I don't like the production. Kind of sounds like One Republic, but like with laser effects going off. Yeah, this album feels like what he was doing in the 90s, just like trying too hard to be modern, but it's just not natural and not working for him. Number 32 for me is where I have Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic. It kind of feels like a little bit of a comeback. I think the production sounds a little more modern than it had been previously, finally updated. Some of his records just prior to this really sounded like still stuck in the late 80s and early 90s. This does give it like the 1999 update, which it's kind of good, but also kind of bad because you get all those like terrible glitchy record scratch kind of effects in the production. You get some like actual contemporary heavyweights like Gwen Stefani and Sheryl Crow and Eve instead of like no-name rappers that no one's ever heard of. I liked reading that the development of this project began in 1988. I feel like every description of every Prince album has something like that. Oh, it's just ridiculous. I don't necessarily think that the record's all that good though. Like it does feel like his most relevant work in a while, but it's just not that good. Greatest Romance Ever Sold was a bad choice of a first lead single, which led to them scrapping the other planned like videos and stuff. So just not so great. So Far So Pleased with Gwen Stefani is all right, but it's also kind of weird and has like this blown out production sound. Strange But True stinks, terrible song. His version of Winding Road is, like you said, pretty terrible and confusing. I think he changes like all the lyrics. It's weird. And lastly, for this set, I have The Slaughterhouse. So we got some of the same lower ones here. So this came out right around the same time as Chocolate Invasion, and he has this like during like the last section of his career, he had this real like thing where he put out 2 albums at a time or like close together, and it seemed like always one of them was pretty good and the other kind of stunk. And this is the one that kind of stinks between this and Chocolate Invasion. A little bit more of like R&B and funk on this one than Volume 1 had. It's not terrible. Like I like that it feels a little more lively and like live performance than a lot of the 90s stuff, which just felt like drum machines and kind of plastic and stiff. But the songwriting's not great. So yeah, 2.5 stars for that one.
Well, you're getting surprisingly high, 2.5. That's a lot of room to run there. It's good. Good. Um,
There's,
yeah.
I was gonna say there's a lot of 2.5s and threes coming.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess that's to be expected from you. All right, 35 for me. Expectation, which is a jazz album, and it met my expectations, but it did not exceed them. And I don't know, his jazz period, it's fine, I guess. I really couldn't tell if it's that good. I didn't enjoy it very much, so they're mostly down here at the bottom. 34, the Black album from 1987, but it came out in 1994, I guess. The Funk Bible, also known as his response to people saying he wasn't black enough. So he made the Black album, and then at the last minute, he shelved it because he thought it was too evil. And he went with Love Sexy instead, and kind of just redirected his whole career for a little while there. But I don't know. I was expecting a little more. This is kind of one of those like all-time bootleg things that people were like crazy about. And, I know like Bono loves it or whatever, but I don't know. What the hell does Bono know? For me, it's just, it exchanges the strong melodies, any type of organic sound for really more cheesy synths, some funk grooving that doesn't go anywhere, some mediocre rapping. It's just, I didn't dig it. It's also not on streaming, so you gotta YouTube it. I don't know. It's 3 stars for me. Didn't love it. Number 33, Planet Earth, which I like the lead off track, the title track, Planet Earth. Kind of silly, environmentally friendly, rah rah, we love Earth kind of lyrics, but it's just big maximalist pop, some great guitar. Guitar features some great guitar, funny, clever little tune. I love you, but not as much as I love my guitar. It's clever. The problem with this, and the problem with many of these songs, sort of the R&B leaning songs from around this period, Mr. Goodnight, I'm going to highlight here. It's missing that eroticism. It's missing the badness. It's missing naughty Prince. Like these lyrics just, they don't work. He's trying to be like PG-13 with it. And it's just, you got to have him, playing it up and dropping F-bombs and saying how much he wants to make, the woman come. Like that's his bread and butter. If he's just going to dance around it, it doesn't work. Especially when you're listening to his entire discography and you just listen to, Emancipation and Come and all this other ridiculous stuff. Doesn't do it for me here on planet Earth. Number 32, I think I'm with you on Love Symbol being, for me anyway, it's his first kind of lousy attempt at really adopting modern trends. I think he does a decent job on Diamond and Pearls. Even if Tony M isn't the greatest rapper, he has enough stuff in there to make it work. But on Love Symbol, which comes out in 92 the next year, it just feels a little too try hard. Um, Sexy MFer is a bust. It's a really kind of lame, braggadocious song that doesn't back it up. Love to the Nines starts out great, but then you get Tony M and some kind of lame rapping. There's some good stuff on here. I think the Morning Papers is excellent, top 50 Prince song. Great melody, great hook, great guitar. It rules. And then you get more Tony M on the Max, and it's just it doesn't work. Blue Light has a little reggae, which is nice. I'm Wanna Melt With You is decent, almost like trip hop sounding. So every time he does something good, Sweet Baby dials back the electronics. Then he goes to the Continental, which brings back kind of the electronic lame sound. Damn You's good. And I do love Three Chains of Gold, which is super theatrical, like Prince doing Andrew Lloyd Webber or something. And it's completely ridiculously out of place on this album, out of place in his whole discography. But I think it's really cool. I wish you did a whole album with that real theatrical style. And number 31, this will break some hearts, especially on RYM. But I got the Rainbow Children. Again, jazz. This is jazz period. But there's just nothing great. I don't understand why this is a great or a good or even a decent jazz album. Everything just kind of sounds like jazz. I don't know why Prince is better or worse at it. After this, he wisely shelved the whole jazz era stuff and went back for a little bit of a late period renaissance. So I think the lack of just any reaction back when it actually came out sort of spurred him back into the right track.
And next five for me is where it really gets, it's going to get bumpy. So hold on. My number 30, he finally quits beating around the bush and just names an album Come. So that is 30 for me. The dispute between him and Warner Brothers really heating up at this point. The record was under promoted. It was his first since Controversy with no top 10 singles. And it's kind of hard to place myself in 1994 and like know if like with proper promotion any of these songs could have been hits. Like maybe the title track if it wasn't 11 minutes long. And like so I'm kind of torn like on the two sides. Like I can see where like if you're the label and he's turning in the things he's turning in, where you might be frustrated and finding it uncommercial. It's but then he's complaining about how you're treating him. I don't know. I can see both sides of the argument. Dark, I think, is the obvious highlight on the record. It's kind of like a horn-laden slow jam. But even that doesn't feel like a hit at 6+ minutes. And I'm no R&B or hip hop expert, but this feels a little behind the times in terms of the production. If I heard this, I would guess it probably came out in like 1991, not 94. So it does seem a little bit like he's losing his grasp on what is current and what is happening. Or like he's juggling so many projects all the time, he's just like, maybe these songs actually are kind of old. Who knows? But you also have the bizarrely out of place track Loose, which feels like Nine Inch Nails or something on this record. It makes no sense. A lot of his records just have songs out of nowhere that don't make a ton of sense. So yeah, not crazy about this one. There's some moments on it, but it's not great. All right, my number 29 is maybe the new all-time example of a record being beloved that I do not get. And it is Sign of the Times at 29 for me. Often regarded as one of, if not the best Prince album by many fans. It's a double album. It opens with the worst, fartiest synth bass sound I've ever heard. I think the keyboard sounds on this record are awful, very dated sounding. He's using the Linn drum machine a ton and the Fairlight CMI a lot. It's so poorly dated. The lyrics are so cringy all over this record. I think they are just awful. Prince as like the beat reporter on the streets doesn't work at all. Super lame. Play in the Sunshine kind of sounds like Dire Straits. Housequake is the beginning of his sort of substantial hip-hop influence in his music. Ballad of Dorothy Parker has kind of like a lo-fi bedroom R&B style of today, which kind of, I mean, you can see like it influenced things in the future. So there's all these different things, like you got like Dire Straits 1 second, lo-fi bedroom R&B the next. So it's like widely varied and is very big in its scope and its ambition, but to me, it mostly just sounds like a collection of failed experiments. I don't think there's too many good songs here. Like I said, I think the lyrics all over this record are terrible. And I think when he does manage a decent tune, I think Starfish and Coffee could be pretty darn good, but he just tries to get way too clever with the production. I think that song, just the way it's treated and the reverb on it just sounds awful. I think the best stuff on it is the most straightforward stuff, which pretty much it means the slow jams. I think Slow Love and Adore are decent. I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, I think, is the one upbeat track that works pretty well. But at 80 minutes, this is just a heck of a slog. And I think the beginning of the long, dark period in Prince's catalog, which lasts, I don't know, 15 years or so. So 2.5 stars on that one. At number 28, I've got Chaos and Disorder. This one only went to 26 on the charts, which is his worst placement since For You. This was a contractual obligation record. He didn't promote it. It was made quickly. He even said he was seeing how fast and loud they could thrash it out, and it seems that way. It's a rocker, so it like should be like more in my wheelhouse, but and it is sonically closer to what I want him to be doing. But the writing I think really suffers from the quick thrash it out approach. He's like rhyming Dolores with Brontosaurus. It's not great. Zamali is such a throwaway kind of blues jam. It all feels very low effort. Into the Light feels sloppy. Guitar and horns kind of clashing, doesn't feel very well arranged. It's kind of disappointing that one of his most guitar centric albums is so phoned in. My number 27 is the Black Album. We are still at 2.5 stars. Yeah, like Joe said, this was supposed to be the follow-up to Sign of the Times and an effort to reclaim his black audience, which is weird to me because that feels like exactly what Sign of the Times was. But also, like you said, he decided it was evil and recalled it like 2 days or something before it had already been like shipped out, and he pulled it. So somehow 100 promo copies leaked in Europe, so they snuck out there and people bootlegged them. Now you can only listen to it on Tidal, I think, but don't you have Tidal, Joe?
I do. I guess I missed that. I probably should check there.
Yeah, apparently it's exclusive to Tidal these days, unless that's outdated information too. It's not peak Prince. It's probably a little worse in quality than what he did put out, which was Love Sexy. But I think Cindy C is a pretty cool track, definitely the highlight for me. I also think this record has some of Prince's best bass playing on it. There might be some synth bass, but I think, as far as I could tell, a lot of it seemed to be like mostly real bass being played. Rock Hard in a Funky Place, I think, is a nice jam too, with some extended guitar soloing. So yeah, I kind of agree with most of what you said about it, but I do think there are some positive qualities to it. My last one for this set is Batman. This was his first #1 album since Around the World, and I somewhat bizarrely had this as a kid. I have no recollection of getting it or ever listening to it once, but I definitely have it. And I don't know, to me, this is just like standard 80s pop. I don't see a ton of difference between this and like Paula Abdul or something like that. It's just like really specific to the era. I guess it's kind of like New Jack Swingy, I guess. Would you call it new? I think there's kind of got like that sound to it. It's kind of fun, and I guess I could see people like if you heard it at the time being nostalgic for it, but it is just like really hard to take seriously. It's so like just silly and the sounds are all kind of goofy and I don't know. To me, overall, this feels more like career positioning and like working with the big movie studio and stuff than it does like a really inspired work or piece of art or anything like that. This just is like as commercial as he ever got. So 2.5 there as well.
All right. I think it's the end of this channel, but we'll push on here. My number 30, Hit and Run Phase 1. Like you were saying, a lot of the times he puts out two albums at the same time, there's one significantly better than the other. And Hit and Run's Phase 2 is significantly better than Phase 1. This, I don't know what, it's hard to like tell what he's thinking with some of these albums and like why one album gets a bunch of stuff and one album gets a bunch of different stuff. Like this doesn't, I guess this is again his like R&B sounding album compared with Hit and Run Phase 2, which is more like hard, rock guitar, soul sounding. So this one, I guess just, at this point, he's just not that great of an R&B writer anymore. He doesn't have the sexiness. So he can still sing. Falsetto still sounds great, but I don't know. There just was not a single standout song on this album. I just in one ear, not the other. Nothing I hated, but like clearly not his best work. So still at 3 stars with that. Now going to 3.5 stars for 2009's MPLS sound, Minneapolis sound, I guess is what it's supposed to be. And I think half of it's pretty good funk. and the other half is pretty cringy modern R&B sounding. Some decent songs. You're Gonna See Me, I think is pretty good. Better with Time is real nice. The more stripped down songs around this time are definitely better. Here is a pretty one. Sounds like a throwback, and I think those are his best songs usually on these albums when he's in the R&B kind of lover man mode. But plenty of good stuff. I mean, these are all 3.5 star albums, so I enjoyed them. I don't know, if I really am going to come back to many of these, but at this point, I enjoyed everything. I didn't hate anything up this point. I definitely liked more albums than I thought I would, considering the reputation of some of these later period albums. Number 28, something with Chaos and Disorder. I'm with Jason for the most part on the sound of it. It's supposedly was more guitar driven, but I don't know. It just isn't as interesting to me. It doesn't have any big hooks. I think Emancipation had some songs at least that, even if you don't like the production style, sounded really good and were catchy. There's some interesting stuff. Right the Wrong might be his only flirtation with like country music. And it's just a little bit, but it's definitely there. Dinner with Dolores, I think, is a good sounding song with some just ridiculous lyrics. I like Into the Light, though. I think that's pretty good pop song. Xana Lee rocks reasonably hard, but it's kind of got like this weird, like fake police chatter kind of going through it, and it just loses me. And compared to what he was doing the year before on the Gold Experience, this is just not even on the same universe. 27, Lotus Flower. I think this is pretty decent guitar-driven album. I like his covers. I like his covers a lot. Crimson Clover, pretty cool. This came out at the same time as MPLS Sound, Minneapolis Sound, whatever. And I think this is slightly better, not a huge step up, but this one a little less trying to sound contemporary and relevant, and a little more, hey, I'm going to play the guitar. Not a great album as far as songwriting goes, but I think the sound is good. Dreamer rocks pretty hard as well. And yeah, just a totally pleasant album that's, it's right at the cusp of 3.5 and 3. So it's not like a great album. I don't want to, you know, don't listen to this instead of Purple Rain, but I think it's totally competent late period kind of album. And number 26, go with the Chocolate Invasion, which was the flip side of Slaughterhouse, another NPG. It's a New Power Generation club release. And this one is way better. But surprisingly, this is the more R&B focused one. So on this kind of double album release, the R&B side is better. This is Jehovah's Witness Central Time, and he's just not horny enough for me. I need that horny Prince, but I think the songwriting is still pretty good. When I Lay My Hands on You has a cool, undulating, wavery guitar sound, some nice vocal work. Judas Smile, another one that has a nice combo of electronic and organic sounds. Prince kind of almost quasi rapping, and it kind of works here. Man, one of his few instrumental tracks in Gamilla, which I liked, and really nice You Make My Sunshine featuring Angie Stone. A couple of weak tracks in the middle, but I think overall pretty solid.
Finally moving up to 3 stars. Is it MPLS sound? I was just saying MPL sound.
Maybe it is MPL sound. I just assumed the MPLS was Minneapolis.
Yeah, probably. Anyways, that's what it is. This is the more R&B slash funk side to Lotus Flower's rock sound. I definitely prefer Lotus Flower. But this one has its moments, and I agree exactly what you said. I think the ballads are the better tunes here. That's the case for a lot of the later records. You're Gonna See Me and Better With Time are the same 2 songs that I have written down as highlights. The rest of it's okay. It does end very bizarrely with the last two tracks. Old School Company has these like really strange pitched vocals, and the last song, No More Candy for You, it's one of the weirdest songs in his whole discography. I think it's got this weirdly like bouncy, almost like 50s rock song feel to it, but then it has like this, I don't even know how to describe it, kind of like a circusy guitar piano hook. Really strange, really weird, especially like to end the record, but it's not a bad record. 3 stars. My number 24, I believe, is the record that came out right after MPLS Sound and Lotus Flower. I've got 2010. Listening to this, I kind of came to this realization that I think it might be too easy for Prince to make passable music. It's just like so easy for him to just like toss things off, and it's pretty good and it's pretty listenable. And this feels kind of like that sort of record where it doesn't feel like a ton of effort went into it, but it's still kind of decent. So the record's not great, but it still results in like what I think is like his second best era is this later period stuff to me. So simultaneously, it's like pretty good and pretty forgettable. A lot of the same type of stuff that he's been doing. Not that many distinguishing characteristics to talk about. Future Soul Song, probably the best song on the record, but it's fine. Number 23 for me is One Night Alone, solo piano and voice. First of all, in a catalog full of some of the most disgusting album covers I've ever seen, this might have the worst one. This album cover is so bad. Uh, I feel like half of his records album covers are designed on like a Windows program that's just called like Album Cover Designer. It's so bad. The music itself, though, it's okay. It's way better than the guitar equivalent, The Truth, which was my least favorite record of his. I think the songs here are better, more soulful, more passionate performances. I don't necessarily know that like this is the best presentation for all of these songs. I think a lot of it could have been even better with full band arrangements, and I don't exactly understand the decision to put these songs out this way, but yeah, it's okay. 3 stars. My number 22 is Welcome to America, released posthumously, as Joe talked about, recorded in 2010. The cool thing about this record, though, is that the bass on it is Tal Wilkenfeld, who I think is a great bass player. I guess they hung out a little bit in 2008, and then he called her in 2009 and said that he wanted her to find a drummer. So they talked about it a little bit. They settled on a drummer. And then through the making of the record, he basically just had them improvise. They played as a trio. She never heard the songs. She didn't know what the lyrics were going to be. She never heard the melodies. So I think she's a great player. I think the performances musically on this record are really cool. I think there's some very nice playing. I think it's kind of got a kind of a cool vibe, but it also feels like it was made that way without like an idea of where the songs were going, and like the lyrics and the melodies aren't that interesting, and it's just kind of like on top of these improvised jams. So I wish it was like more built like from the ground up with like better songs, but it does seem like a fun jam. Probably could have stayed in the vault, but I thought it was an interesting listen, at least for her bass playing. 3 stars there. At number 21, going to close out this set with Plectrum Electrum, another one of these simultaneously releases. This one came with Artificial Age, but this one features his new backing band, Third Eye Girl. This is one of the rock albums in these kind of like duo releases. I think Wow is a pretty solid opener. And then when you get beyond that, I think the songwriting isn't that strong. I think the band sounds good. They sound powerful. It's pretty like a tight performance. Sounds pretty strong. There's some great playing from Prince. There's a great guitar work. But there's also like a lot of generic riffage and like not that many strong hooks. There's a lot of female vocals on it too. He lets the Third Eye girls sing quite a bit on this record. And none of it's bad. It's all passable and perfectly fine, but like I want to listen to Prince, and Prince is far better. and more interesting to listen to. So the lack of Prince vocals is a downside as well. There's a guest spot from Lizzo on Boy Trouble. Yeah, that's that. But it's okay. It's just not that special.
All right. I mean, there's nothing crazy in there, so we're good after that shock of Sign of the Times. Everything else pretty much in line. 25 for me. I don't know why you hate this album so much. The Truth is my 25. I think it's totally passable. I like hearing Prince in a completely different setting, just guitar. There's not like a lot of adornment. Like there's not a lot of even like effects. There's not a lot of like double. I mean, I don't think there's any doubling of guitar. It's just the guitar. It sounds like it's just plugged into the amp. So some people don't like that. I think it's fine. Uh, Other than Animal Kingdom, which I really hate, is maybe my least favorite lyrics of all time. Everything else is fine. I like his playing. I like the laid back performances. I never noticed anything else horrible lyrically. So I think it's good. 3.5 stars there. And 24, same as Jason, 2010 from 2010. This one, he, I think you're onto something about Prince, like not caring that much about some things. Like this one was distributed along with the Daily Mail on just some random day, like the day of the release. The only way to get this album was through the Daily Mail. Just it came with it. Like that's such a bizarre, kind of annoying way to release an album. So I don't know, he just didn't care about it or what. I don't know. His whole mindset is bizarre and kind of unexplainable and unknown entity, but I think this album is pretty decent uh, for the distribution method. I think um, I think musically it's cool. It kind of has a retro sound, and he really didn't do that ever. Like, there's no other point in his career he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go back to Dirty Mind sounds," or "I'm gonna go back to Purple Rain sounds," or anything like that. I think 2010, as far as like Compassion, the opener, and Beginning Endlessly, they kind of have that early 1980s distinctively lo-fi keyboard sound. Reminds me of like Controversy, Dirty Mind a little bit. What is missing is the Dirty Mind and Controversy mindset as far as like lyrics go. That Dirty Prince missing from the equation. So the lyrics on something like Compassion, which if it came out in 1981 would be spelled Cump-Assion, and it would be way better because the lyrics are kind of sappy and lame. But I do like the music. Everybody Loves Me, another one that kind of has a throwback sound. Laveau, funky, nice guitars on it. Lay It Down's pretty solid as well. It's just the lyrics too vanilla for it to go past 3.5 stars. 23, again, kind of in sync with Jason here, close to it anyway. Plectrum Electrum from 2014, his collaboration with Third Eye Girl. It's interesting, Prince's collaborations. Lizzo's on here, but this is kind of before Lizzo was a thing. And he's not collaborating with, I don't even know who was big in 2014, Taylor Swift or something. Like he's always kind of like plucking these musicians and artists and groups sort of out of obscurity and like just going with them. Like there's no like big name producers ever in his catalog. And it's just really weird. He like exists in like an alternate dimension outside of, popular music, which is cool. But, a couple times I was like, Prince, just like call up like somebody new, contemporary, like just do something different. Because he did like the anti-popular thing so much that it became like his thing. Like if he had gone out and gotten like Timbaland to produce an album, like that would have been like, whoa, like that is something different. And I think he fell into like that, just I'm Prince, I'm gonna do whatever I want, and it's gonna be weird and different. A little too much. This album's fine. It's right in the middle of 3.5 stars. I like the sound. I like Third Eye Girl's contributions. I like their vocals. I like hearing something different. The guitar is good. The drums, the bass, the music is all pretty strong. The title track is cool. Instrumental. Whitecaps, pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a good 3.5 star album, and that's all. 22, I'm gonna go with Crystal Ball. This one fell for me a little bit, I'll admit. It's probably not one of the top 25 best albums of 1998, like I claimed in the 1998 video, but it's different when you're listening to albums from a horrible year like 1998. It's different when you're listening to Prince and all his albums. It doesn't quite stand out. It's 3 albums. The second disc is probably 4.5 stars, but it also has Chlorine Bacon Skin, which is 15 minutes long and the worst song in his catalog, and Test Your Will to Live. But some of the other stuff, Calhoun Square is awesome. Sounds like Sly and the Family Stone. Crucial, which was written originally for Sign of the Times and got replaced by Adore, is just one of my favorite songs by him. I think it's absolutely incredible. Sounds like Smokey Robinson a little bit. It's maybe my favorite find of Prince outside the 80s. Sexual Suicide's great. Good Love is amazing. I was on the soundtrack for Bright Lights, Big City. Prince doing Camille mode there. Sounds like Carly Rae Jepsen. It's awesome. Strays of the World is awesome. Gospel tune she gave her Angels is great. But disc one is pretty hit or miss. And disc three, some of his more contemporary trying to sound R&B cuts just don't work. There's not a lot of hooks on them. Disc one is a lot of like New Jack Swing and out of date R&B as well. Some really great, some of like my favorite songs in this whole catalog, and then a bunch of stuff that just you never need to hear again. So I'll drop that down to 3.5 stars. And then 21, I'm gonna go with 3121 from 2005. I think it's a pretty darn good contemporary R&B effort, contemporary for 2005. Came out after his sort of career renaissance with musicology the year before, sort of got him back into like Prince mode. And this one is more of an R&B, funkier kind of sounding record. Some great songs. Black Sweat's awesome. 3121 has just some real cool guitar sounds in it, some squeaky stuff. I don't know what he's doing, but sounds cool. Fury is a great hard rocking song. The Dance, just nice vintage pop. Lolita's pretty sweet. Although you hear a song like Lolita and you want to think like dirty 80s Prince. And unfortunately, you get like anti-Lolita lyrics, like "Don't be a Lolita." It's no good. Like that's not the Prince I want, but musically, it's pretty solid, and yeah, it's a high 3.5 stars for me.
Getting into the top 20 now, still at 3 stars for myself. We've got Love Sexy at number 20. His first album to miss the top 10 since Controversy, but I do think it's a bit of a step up from Sign of the Times. I Know has some energetic ensemble playing. Alphabet Street has some cool guitar and bass work from Prince. The drum machine on that is blaring loud, but other than that, it's kind of a fun tune. Anesthesia is terrible though. Just like a dumb, why are we doing a song called Anesthesia? Dance On has some cool playing on it, but it's like so herky-jerky and cluttered with unnecessary production stuff. When Two Are in Love, though, is pretty good, and I Wish You Heaven, also pretty decent. This one, kind of a mixed bag. It's a little unfocused, and it feels a bit rushed, but I think it does have its moments. My number 19, still at 3 stars, I have Parade. It's another soundtrack. I've not seen Under the Cherry Moon. I have seen clips of that one, though. And I don't know, this is a strange one. 6 of the first 7 songs are sub 3 minutes. So you got a lot of short little tunes. Christopher Tracy's Parade is such a weird album opener. The vocals are like so distant and muddled sounding. New Position, kind of a cool funky groove, but it doesn't really develop or have much of a hook or go anywhere. I Wonder You feels like pure filler to me. There's a bunch of stuff on this record that like really feels just like soundtracky, like segues or like things used for scenes that don't really make a lot of sense in the context of the record. Unlike Purple Rain, I don't think this one works that well as a freestanding record. Yeah, just not a lot of good songs. The songs either feel incomplete or they feel recycled or they feel tossed off. I think there's some like attempts here to demonstrate versatility, like Do You Lie? And I don't think they're that good and they feel kind of ill-advised. There's a few highlights that save it from being kind of like a total wash. Kiss is obviously amazing. I think Mountains is pretty solid. Sometimes It Snows in April, I think, is a good piece of songwriting, but I think the arrangement and the recording are kind of lifeless and boring. So, yeah, 3 stars on Parade. Jumping to a totally different era, at number 18, I've got The Chocolate Invasion. He's going back to like more of an R&B pop sound on this record. Back to music with lyrics after his couple jazz fusion kind of records. Not the best Prince songs, I think, but he feels more relaxed and comfortable here than he has in a long time. I think the production feels a lot more natural. The songwriting isn't trying to be like a hit like it sometimes felt like. And it's also not explicitly trying not to be a hit. So I think it just feels like he wrote a bunch of songs and they're pretty decent. And yeah, Underneath the Cream is good. Vavoom is good. High, I like. You Make My Sunshine with Angie Stone was a single, I think, like a year or two previous, and they put it on this, and that's a pretty good song. And I think Prince's vocals sound great on this record. So yeah, 3 stars there. Well, if you haven't been like keeping track of every record that I talk about, you might realize that I've got just about every jazz album left to talk about. My number 17 is The Rainbow Children. This is his return to the name Prince after using the symbol for a long time. Unfortunately, it comes with another terrible album cover. But yeah, this is him dabbling in jazz. He's got some notable names on this one, like Najee playing sax and flute, John Blackwell on drums, Larry Graham plays bass on 2 tracks. I don't know, it might not be my favorite style, but I will take this over like the drum machines and like bad attempts at hip hop anytime. I think probably his greatest strength, almost definitely, is his musicianship. I think he's just a phenomenal musician, and any record that highlights that, I think, is the direction he should be going. So, yeah, I like the playing on this quite a lot. Some of the like the deep pitched spoken word stuff is kind of distracting, and there's a couple spots where he like kind of like sings, or pseudo raps a little bit, but other than that, I just think the playing is really great and it sounds really good. So 3 stars for that. My number 16 is The Vault, Old Friends for Sale. He submitted this to the label at the same time as Chaos and Disorder, and then they held on to it until he was about to release a record on Arista, and they like released it at the same time, I guess, to compete with him or whatever. But this one's actually pretty good. Like Chaos, it features a lot of like real instrumentation, and it feels more focused and complete. It doesn't feel as tossed off as Chaos and Disorder does. There's a little jazziness starting to come through on this one, kind of getting the first hints of that jazz phase, which he would explore more later. Some really cool horn arrangements on this. There's a lot of like this like New Orleans kind of sound to it. Some nice jazzy guitar solos, and yeah, the playing on She Spoke to Me, I think, is great. And I actually questioned for a little while, like, is this even Prince? This is not like his normal shreddy type of solo. It doesn't really sound like him at all, but I do believe it is. And yeah, It's About That Walk, I think, is pretty cool. That's probably got the most of that kind of like New Orleans, kind of Dixieland jazz sort of thing a little bit. Almost sounds a little bit like a Little Feat tune. Five Women, I think, is pretty cool and bluesy. The record takes a little bit of a dip in the middle, but it picks back up on the last 3 tracks. On its own, it's like a 3-star record, but where it falls in the context of his discography, it was like a breath of fresh air. So like, I almost wanted to give it 5 stars for a second, but then yeah, came back down to earth. It's 3 stars.
3 stars. I don't think so. I think you're just ridiculous with some of these ratings. You speak very nicely about them, and you're like, 3 stars.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing when like I just said, when you're listening to Prince, like, yeah, I had a lot of nice feelings towards it because what I had just listened to was not not good. So yeah, I felt good about it, but when I compare it to music on the whole, yeah, it's a 3-star record.
Well, it's my 20th, and I will say that it's definitely, I don't know, it's probably a 4-star record for 1999 because it's going to be better than most of the albums I can think of from 1999. But in Prince's discography, it is only at a very high 3.5 stars. Kind of a revenge record by Warner Brothers, the last album released by them on the original run with Prince. And yeah, all these songs have a nice jazzy feel to them. Some, classic soul on the title track as well. She Spoke to Me, kind of a stretched out jazz workout. Five Women When the Lights Go Down, just really nice, pop songs. And I think Extraordinary is just an excellent, excellent ballad. Just amazing vocals. Of course, it's Prince, but when he really puts it on, it is extraordinary. And probably the only thing missing from this album is just the lack of, like it doesn't feel as complete as it should because it's sort of, one of those revenge records that the label put together. So it doesn't quite have the flow and everything down pat, but a very nice album nonetheless. And the last of my 3.5-star albums, again, this one's so close to 4, but it's hard to judge compared to other Prince albums. One Night Alone, solo piano and voice by Prince from 2002. I, like you, have notes about the album cover. Horrible, awful typography, just the most nonsensical imagery. It's so bad. But what isn't bad is Prince, just stripped down to the essentials, piano, vocals, great cover of A Case of You by Joni Mitchell. Prince sounds wonderful. Piano playing is excellent, jazzy, sentimental, just really nice. The songs themselves, probably not the best in his discography, but the title track, it is amazing. The piano playing on it is extraordinary. And I think just hearing Prince just stripped away from everything, all the electronics and everything, is a real treat. So that's, very high 3.5 stars. Into the 4-star territory, maybe a little longer than people expected from me, but I'm not a simp as much as I love Prince. And I do think he's probably the best songs artist of all time as far as songs that I want to hear. But albums, definitely a mixed bag. But 18, Hit and Run, Phase 2, last album before he died. It sucks because he was really just finding his sound again. Super guitar focused, warmer. The real instrumentation is fantastic. Really feels like, he's channeling the 70s, some of that soul. Um, Baltimore, very good protest song to lead off the album. Rock and roll love affair is cool, long winding story. Instrumentation, it's just fresh, it's warm, a lot of funky horns. It's a nice homey soup of all the elements that Prince brings. Um, 2Y2D, great backing vocals. I love the yacht rock sound on Look at Me, Look at You. Prince isn't going over the top of the vocals. He's subdued, letting the instrumentation, the playing really speak there. Stare has that really cool bass solo to kick off the track. Some great mid-70s sounding horn charts all over this album. Extra Lovable is even a little saucy. It's not quite come. He's got a bit of a dirty mind again. Black Muse, probably my favorite on the album. Channels a little bit of Stevie Wonder warmth to it. Really like that one. 4 stars there. 17, I'm going to go with Batman. And it's such a weird combo. Prince doing a soundtrack to a superhero movie, but it kind of works. He's kind of dark and mysterious, I guess. I don't know. It never worked in my brain when I thought about Batman and Prince. So I underrated it a little bit, but both Batman and Prince, rich ladies' men, deep dark secrets, like to dress up in solid colors. Kind of works there. The songs themselves, I think The Future is awesome. Cool skeletal dance groove, some interesting future retro sounding synths to it. Electric Chair is probably my favorite from the album. Probably a top, I don't know, 100 Prince song. I love that thick synth guitar combo. I love the lyrics on it. Oh, if a man is considered guilty for what goes on in his mind, then give me the electric chair for all my future crimes. I think that's a great little lyric. I think Bat Dance is terrible. It's probably his one of my least favorite songs in his whole catalog, but I think everything else is pretty good. Arms of Orion, good duet. Lemon Crush is pretty cool. I think probably the Batman aspect takes away a little bit of the focus, but I think there's some pretty cool songs on here. Batman ends the 1980s with a perfect decade of 4+ star albums, which is always great to see. Number 16. This is a cool one. You had it way at the bottom. I get it. It's 3 discs. I'm gonna just pretend like it didn't happen. Because I heard a lot of nice words about this one from the Discord, especially disc two of Emancipation from 1996. Disc one, a little hit or miss, contemporary R&B, a little too much New Jack Swing sound, a little too much Prince trying to be hip and current. Some really cool stuff, but disc two is incredible. It's might be it's like 4.5, almost 5 stars for disc two. Some of his best R&B stuff, Soul Sanctuary, is amazing. Email is a lot of fun. Curious Child has some great Stevie Wonder-like instrumentation on it, really complex. Joint to Joint is hilarious. That little break where he's talking about what kind of cereal he likes. Captain Crunch with soy milk, because cows are for calves. You don't love me, you're a faker. You just want me for my acres. And then he goes a little fun country. It's hilarious. I love it. The Holy River is amazing. Savior is the peak of the album. One of my favorite Prince songs, one of my favorite discoveries. Vocals are amazing. A lot of gospel influence, incredible guitar on it. Love the way it sounds. Disc three, not quite as good as disc two. Little too much of that 90s dance R&B sound, but there's some cool stuff on there as well. And I like the covers. Betcha by Golly Wow, I think is great. I Can't Make You Love Me. La 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 means I love you. One of Us. I think they're all very solid. And Kate Bush, yeah, she's credited as backing vocals, and you can't hear her, but I'm glad that she was there. Anyway,
All right. Number 15 for me is the Gold Experience. P Control opens the album. Uh, just more Prince being overtly sexual, which at this point in this discography to me, I guess it's what you want, but to me this kind of lyricism was so played out by this point. Yeah, I just was not a fan of that song. Endorphin Machine, which was originally meant to be on the album Come, is a good rocker with a pretty ripping solo, but it's not, I wouldn't say, a very good song. But there's a lot more guitar work to come on the record. Shh has some sick guitar on it. That one's more of a slow jam, so it like gives him a lot of space to just like play with and go off. And yeah, his soloing on there is awesome. Arguably his best song at that point since Kiss. Most Beautiful Girl in the World, I think, is a pretty solid, decent tune, nice melody, straightforward. That was his last top 10 single. I think it had the makings and could have been his best album in ages, and I still actually might have been. Lots of guitar stuff, lots of rock stuff on it, but I think it's too long. It's over an hour long. It's a little like over compressed and like overly loud sounding. All the NPG operator interludes are just pointless and annoying, and there's still a few tracks on it like P Control and We March and Now that I just do not like spread throughout the record. So it's almost very good, but it's just like him getting in his way a little bit too much to be like really, really good. So 3 stars there. Number 14, I've got Planet Earth. This one's got a Mandela effect on it for me because I would have bet my life that the song Guitar was on 3121 because I remember having the 3121 CD from work and listening to it in my car. And I definitely did not have Planet Earth, but I also remember distinctly listening to Guitar in my car. So I don't know what happened there, but something weird's going on. But yeah, Guitar's an okay tune. It's kind of fun. Somewhere Here on Earth, I think a nice jazzy slow burn. The One You Want to See, I think is catchy and fun. All the Midnights in the World. Every time I hear this song, it's the only thing I can hear. It rips part of its melody from Here Comes Santa Claus, like in multiple parts. It's really strange. I don't know if anyone else notices that or hears that, but it's when I hear that song, like it's just Here Comes Santa. It sounds very Christmassy. But yeah, overall, this record's okay. I like. I'll take this over anything in the 90s. But I also think it feels a little like him coasting after Musicology and 3121. I think, this, you could tell me this was leftovers from those two records, and that's very easily believable. It's kind of in that vein, but not quite as good. I think the production's a little worse here, and again, a little over compressed. So 3 stars there as well. For number 13, finally going all the way back to For You, his debut album. Yeah, this is pretty much Prince on his own. You got some engineers, a couple uncredited appearances by others. Patrice Rushen, I guess, did some synth programming. Charles Veal did a string arrangement, but other than that, all the instruments and stuff, singing, it's all Prince. The album itself and the single Soft and Wet were minor hits, but they did better on the soul charts than on the mainstream charts, where they just kind of made a little dent and then disappeared. But yeah, not bad by any means. It does feel like a debut, though, by a young artist. I think the talent here is obvious, but there's also like a lot of that like late 70s smoothness and disco influence. And I think that kind of dulls what could have otherwise been like a more impactful, kind of grittier funk workout. So yeah, the production I think is a little overly smooth. Crazy You I think gets a little yachty as well. Just As Long As We're Together feels like he's playing it like 10 to 20 BPM faster than he should be. Just is like racing along, kind of losing the groove. The song Baby is pretty schmaltzy. And I think he probably sings a little too much of the record, which I think he pretty much sings all of the record in very high falsetto. And it kind of flattens the impact of it. Like it makes like the vocal performance is way less dynamic. There's not much variation going on. So I think he gets better at kind of working in and out of it. But here it's like falsetto the whole time. But yeah, there's some good stuff. There's some blazing guitar work on it, some crazy bass, solos designed to impress. But yeah, it's cool. 3. My number 12 is Around the World in a Day. Apparently, he started working on this record before the release of Purple Rain, and he takes a little bit of a left turn. I don't think quite as much of a left turn as people make it out to be. It's called like his psychedelic record, and it's compared a lot to Sgt. Pepper's. But he's denied that influence, and I hear it a little bit on a couple tracks, but I don't think it's that prominent. The record really seemed to perplex people at the time that it came out. It's mostly reviewed favorably now. I think most Prince fans love it, but I don't know. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle on it. I think there's like interesting ideas, a couple pretty good songs, but I think it's sort of like genius that people proclaim it to be is a little overstated. Like, is Condition of the Heart genius? I don't think so. I think it's a decent song that's drawn out a few minutes too long, that could use a rhythm section to push it along. I think it kind of just feels a little bit like dead weight. Tambourine in America, I think, would fit on almost any of his previous albums. So I don't see where like there's like this record is so different from the stuff that came before it. Although also, if you put those songs on Purple Rain, they'd be the worst songs on the record. So, it's like the quality of the song here is not up to Purple Rain and not even close, and people that think that are a little crazy. I think it feels a little unfocused. The hooks are nowhere near the level of his last 2 records, and, the supposed psychedelia isn't as pronounced as people make it out to be, and it's not pronounced enough to make it sonically more interesting than his previous albums. So, kind of just think it's okay. 3 stars. 3.5s are coming, Joe. We got one right now, actually. 3.5 stars for Hit and Run Phase 2. Like you said, the last during his life, more organic sounding, engineered by Booker T. Jones. Opens with the Freddie Gray tribute, Baltimore, which is really good. Lots of horns on the album, which I like a lot. Some great electric piano playing on several tracks. Really good on Look at Me, Look at You. It's not until pretty late in his discography that he really flashes how good of a keyboardist he is. I mean, I know he played all the keys on a lot of the early 80s stuff, but especially like as a soloist on keyboard, he doesn't really show that much until later. Extra Lovable feels like a throwback to earlier Prince with a little disco flair. I love the Sir Duke-esque horn breaks on that track. Uh, Groovy Potential, I think, is really cool. When She Comes is a nice slow one. Screwdriver, pretty good rock song. And yeah, I just think it's got a bunch of solid songs on it. I think the production is pretty good. I like the horns and the arrangements a lot, and his singing never dips on any record. So it's, yeah, just still sounding really good and really strong. Just yeah, consistent.
Well, we are in for the wildest top 10 in the history of any Prince ranking of all time. That's going to be something special. I'm yeah, all right. Now 15. I'm gonna go with Come, which actually rose for me. I didn't have it in the top 25 for 1994. I don't know if it actually would make it, but it'd be very close. So I did bump it up from 3.5 to 4 stars. Love the title track. So smooth. So just unbelievably just dirty and filthy. 11 minutes of it too. It just keeps going and he just gets more and more erotic. But if you took away the lyrics completely, I think there's a great track underneath. The horns sound amazing. Really just, live instrumentation. Very jazzy, very just soulful, great backing vocals throughout. And for whatever reason, I always thought this was like his really like modern sounding for the time album. But I noticed more interesting parts this time. The orchestration, the trumpet is great on it as well on the title track. Loose is a great Nine Inch Nails sounding song. I don't know why he decided to go industrial, but something completely out of his wheelhouse. I think it sounds cool though. Race is more New Jack Swing. Dark is just a great ballad. Another just very organic, horn-driven song. I think solo is really cool. Just him singing, basically. Experimental, just really sparse. Mostly just his voice and a couple synths in there. And if you've ever wondered what Vanity sounds like coming, you got to stay around for the last track, Orgasm, which is Vanity having an orgasm, apparently. Not my favorite on the album, but I definitely dug that as a whole a lot more than I did. Rose in my rankings pretty significantly. Number 14, we got a regular ass Prince album from 2004, Musicology. It's been, I mean, really the most regular album he did between like Gold Experience and then it was just like weird solo piano stuff and weird jazz and God knows what else. Musicology is his comeback to like being Prince again. The opener's great, super like funky, spiky James Brown. Illusion, Coma, Pimp and Circumstance. Another one where he can just carry a track with his vocals. A Million Days, just a great purple ballad. Some nice overdriven guitar on there. Call My Name, awesome classic sounding cut R&B, just melodic, smooth, hooky, all the things that Prince can do coming back to the forefront. And then Cinnamon Girl, one of his best rockers, I think. Just that lead, that tone, kicks ass. I really wish he did a couple more just regular sounding songs like that. Because when he does them, they're incredible. Cinnamon Girl, it's a top 50, maybe top 60 Prince song for me. And yeah, when he wants to, he can just do that in his sleep. Number 13, we'll go with Love Sexy. I think this is a solid album. Replace the Black Album, aka the Funk Bible, because Prince thought the Funk Bible, the Black Album, was evil. Whipped up Love Sexy instead, which is a good record, very good at times, but it's clearly, unless you're Jason, a massive step down after Sign of the Times. This is just sort of Prince's, the start of Prince's second act, very much all over the place in terms of style. This is where he starts like mixing the sacred and the profane together, and he'd hinted at it a little bit. Temptation on Around the World in a Day, The Cross. He's kind of searching for higher answers. He's really mixing like sex and religion and God together on this one. Alphabet Street's great, tons of fun. Even the Horny Pony rap from Cat, We Need You to Rap. Glam Slam's great. Love Sexy's good. When Two Are in Love, nice organic sounding ballad. I Wish You Heaven brings in a little jazzy elements. I think this, though, is a little too synthetic sounding, and I know Jason will say it was all synthetic sounding, but this just sounds like a little less organic. There's more like unnecessary talky sections. All the songs seem a little bit too long now. The succinct pop song kind of out the window. Uh, so I think it's good, but not not his finest hour of the 80s. Number 12, Diamonds and Pearls. Synths are a little cheesy. There's a little too much New Jack Swing, a little too much Tony M. But when the songs are on, I think they're amazing. I think Thunder is a pretty good way to announce sort of the new Prince sound. Love the acapella to start the album. Great way to come in. I think Diamonds and Pearls is his best ballad in a long time. Such great backing vocals, the way he kind of intermingles. It's just unbelievably catchy. Cream, I think is great. Sexy bluesy, funky stuff. He'd rumored to be doing a collab with Bonnie Raitt around this time, and that kind of sounds like something that would be on that collaboration that never came about, but you can kind of hear that there. Strollin's great. Willing and Able, another one that sort of sounds like, hey, Bonnie Raitt might have been involved, or he was writing for Bonnie on that one. And it's some, awkward stuff like Jughead and Push, but Get Off's a lot of fun and insatiable. Great tune to close things out. And then finally, number 11. Uh, this one definitely rose in my estimation as well, and I see a lot of people bad mouthing, but I think Graffiti Bridge is really good. Most critics thought it was a comeback from Love, Sexy, and Batman. It was number 10 on the year-end Paz and Jop poll in the Village Voice. A lot of guest stars. One of the few times I think it really works. Tevin Campbell, Mavis Staples, The Time. They're all on here. Stylistically, it's all over the place. New Jack Swing, blues, psychedelic rock, funk pop, R&B. There's some like 50s sounding stuff from the time, like a little rockabilly, a little metal. It's got everything. Um, I think opener, This Feeling I Got is great. New Power Generation is a solid rocker. Question of You, real cool. Atmospheric lead guitar on it. Elephants and Flowers is a good song. Round and Round, not bad, a little underdeveloped. We Can Funk, though, with George Clinton is great. Prince just really slutting it up on that one. And I love the jazzy introspection on Joy and Repetition. And then Prince just shreds on that one, which is cool. Love Machine, all good. Shake from the time. Sounds like it's like from the 50s and they threw some synths on it, but I think it's a real cool sounding song. And I like the addition of the time having a couple songs on this album. So it rose up to a mid 4 stars. These are all 4 stars. So not quite up to 4.5 yet, but will be coming.
Well, that making the Paz and Job poll just goes to show what a wasteland 1990 is. All right, into the top tens now, one at a time. I'm still at 3.5. For Lotus Flowers, my number 10. We talked about how this came out at the same time as MPL Sound. It's actually part of a triple album box set, along with the album Elixir by his protege Bria Valente. But we did not listen to that for this exercise. You said you liked his cover of Crimson and Clover. I think it's really weird, and I don't like it very much. It's a strange choice. I don't like many of his covers, to be honest. Colonized Mind, though, super cool. Almost like this psych rock guitar freak out. Just really, really good playing. Feel good, feel better, feel good, feel better, feel wonderful. Pretty cool as well. Another rock tune, a lot of guitar, but some really cool, interesting synth sounds happening underneath as well. He completely shreds it up on the track Wall of Berlin. The track Dollar Sign is a weird one, another one with like strange chipmunked vocals. I'm not sure why he was doing that from time to time. Yeah, there's some weird turns on this, like a couple strange choices, but mostly I view this record as a more successful version of Chaos and Disorder, just like going, making a really good rock and guitar centric album, but this time I think the production's better, the psychedelic touches are cool, it's a little more layered, and I think the songs feel like they were actually written instead of just like hurried and jammed out and done. So, yeah, 3.5.
Okie dokie. My number 10 is going to be his debut, For You, which also rose. I think I only had it 3.5 back in the day, but up to 4 stars now. 100% written, played by Prince, other than just a couple uncredited people. He didn't like to give other people credit. It's all Prince. Love the a cappella opener. Just shows off what a ridiculous voice he has. A perfect showcase of the talent he possessed. In Love, it's just jumpy, fun, disco, funk. Love those squishy sounding synths. Prince's rich falsetto. Soft and Wet, you kind of get a hint of what's to come as far as his, modus operandi when it comes to lyrics. A little dirty, a little sexy, a lot of double entendres, or just flat out saying it, which would come a little later. But this is still the 70s, so he's got to kind of beat around the bush a little bit. Just as long as we're together, has a really cool funky jam outro. Baby shows off more just insane vocal skills. I think the only thing that really hurts this album is just the sameness. It all sounds a little bit the same, other than something like So Blue, which is a little more stripped back. But it's probably not his best song. He does break out the guitar a little bit. Final track, I'm Yours. It still kind of sounds like a disco song, but he can shred on it, and it's kind of showing what is to come there. The album's a little too cutesy. It's not sleazy enough for me, but I think it sounds really slick. I think it's really impressive what he did, producing and writing and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, there's some cool stuff. My Love is Forever and I'm Yours, as far as like guitar goes, is awesome, but it would get better. But I still think this is a pretty impressive debut, nonetheless.
All right. Well, I don't have a ton to say about my number 9, but because it's instrumental, I have news at number 9. Uh, I enjoyed the heck out of these instrumental records, and man, it was tough going for a while. Going through the '90s stuff I was not having fun, and I did not expect it to get better. I thought it was going to be rough the rest of the way, and these kind of turned it around for me. This one in particular is just 4 tracks, like you said, north, south, east, west. Each one's exactly 14 minutes long. You got the same rhythm section from the previous record, Expectation, but it's John Blackwell on drums, and he played a bit with D'Angelo, and you've got Rhonda Smith on bass, who played with Jeff Beck and others, I think. And yeah, just a great rhythm section. You also have Eric Leeds on sax on this record and Renato Neto on keys. And I don't know, I think if he were a jazz artist to begin with and he put this out, I think it would have been received way more positively. Just the fact that it's Prince, I think people had just like this isn't what they want from Prince. They want Prince to do pop and R&B and stuff, and this kind of maybe confused them a little. But I mean, I don't think it's good for Prince doing jazz. I just think toe to toe with any other like jazz record from this era, this is at least as good. Um, I think he's an incredible guitar player. I think the playing on this is so good from everybody, not just Prince, but especially from Prince. It's largely, I think maybe entirely improvised. And so the songs start kind of slow and they're kind of feeling each other out. And there's like maybe these stretches where there's not a ton happening, but there's always payoff. Every one of these builds into like huge crescendos of just like incredible guitar virtuosity. So there's always a payoff. All the stretches of inactivity always lead to something great. So, yeah, I don't know. My favorite thing about Prince is his musicianship, and it's here in full display.
Yeah, he was a pretty good guitarist, huh? Yeah, he was one of the best of all time. Also, like one of the great singers of all time. So you add those together and you get a lot of great Prince albums. News is not one of them. I'm sorry. No one thinks that. You're
No.
the only person who thinks that in the
Maybe.
entire world.
I also,
Like all the jazz heads love the Rainbow Children. Like they don't even look at news.
I
So just
don't know what to tell you.
I'll re-listen to that one though. But still, it's not gonna be in my top 10 or anything like that. My number nine is Prince from 1979, is sophomore effort, and just such an obvious step up in pretty much everything across the board. Songwriting, 10 times better. The arrangements, just the level that he reaches with his guitar, his playing, his arrangements, light years ahead. I Want to Be Your Lover is amazing. Obviously, everyone loves that song. It was his first hit. Um, it's just more restrained, it's more balanced. It's totally open, but also sort of secret about its level of raunchiness. The I Want to Be the Only One You Come For, 1979. Get that on the pop charts is great. Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad, awesome. Prince's voice just on a whole other level, especially during the pre-chorus. He kind of gets angry a little bit, gets going there. A couple tracks aren't great. Sexy Dancer, I think, is a little noodly when we're dancing nice and slow. It's minimalist, but it's a little too slow. It doesn't quite get there. It doesn't build into something more. Bambi really shows Prince just going hog wild on the guitar. I love that tone about wooing a lesbian. Well, it's not PC. You couldn't get away with that today, but I think it's just a really good, funny, kind of well-written song. Feel for You, just not even close to the Shaka Khan version. So that it's a little tough to listen to. I think those synth tones are a little too perky. It doesn't quite feel finished in comparison, but it's still a good track. It's still got, the elements there. Shaka just takes it and runs with it and makes it perfect. It's going to be Lonely, closer, absolute perfection, best track in his career up to that point. The arrangement, the way it builds towards the end there, with that magnificent outro, the way the music keeps dropping out and just leaving Prince's voice all alone, just to kind of shine and just all the emotion there is great. A couple tracks that are just so. Um, some only at 4 stars still, but it's real close to 4.5. It's half brilliant, half brilliant.
Well, if anyone out there checks out news and likes it, they are gonna love Expectation, which is my number eight. Um, Yeah, this was the biggest surprise of the whole discography for me was this. Like I said, this just like saved me, and I think it saved him a little bit too, because after going through this jazzy period, he comes back pretty strong. Yeah, this is another instrumental jazz fusion album. This one's a little less fusiony and a little more like new agey. There's a lot more space and stuff. It's not as eventful. You know, I could flip these pretty easily as far as like which one's better. Put this one ahead mainly for the sax playing. I think Candy Dulfer's sax playing on this is really good. Just kind of like simple melodic playing, nothing fancy, but I think those kind of melodies carry the record a little bit. Where it doesn't feel quite as improvised as News does. Prince's keyboard playing on this record, super impressive. A lot of really great solos on the keys from him on this. Some killer organ on the closing track, Expedition, really great. Expand, that track's a little gritty and funky, but you know, most of the way it's pretty mellow and relaxing, enjoyable stuff. So 3.5.
My last four-star album, I got Controversy from 1981. A little fuller sound than Dirty Mind, I think, which is a little more like bedroom pop almost, R&B style. This one, a little funkier, a little bigger. Lead off track, Controversy. That's a great song. I love that killer synth riff, some great chicken pick guitar, a little chick underneath. It feels like this is like the modern Prince, the beginning of his purpleness, how he would continue throughout the 80s, longer, kind of groovier songs. Controversy goes on for 7 minutes. Maybe a little too long, but the groove is great. The chorus is fantastic. This is his first time in Purple, first time with the stylized song titles. You get the Wendy and Lisa stuff, more 80s, less disco. So yeah, it's a pretty big sea change as far as that goes. This one's a little more concerned with society, politics, questions of the mind over questions of the flesh. But it also has sexuality, do me baby, and jack you off. So it's not all the way in that camp. He still balances uh, the sexy and the societal lyrics. Do me baby's great, great ballad. The way it goes off at the end with like all that talking and the real intimate sexual stuff. Yeah, don't listen to that with your parents, but it's pretty good. It's pretty much what I want to hear from Prince. Like that is the style, that is the uniqueness that only Prince can do. Uh, Private Joy, one of my favorite Prince songs. Incredibly hooky synth lines. The machine gun drums that kind of kick in every once in a while. Ronnie Talked to Russia, kind of silly, but I like how fast and punk it is. Any Christian, kind of incomprehensible lyrically, but the guitar in the background, that like searching kind of all over the place. It's tuned or it's turned down a little too much in the mix, but some really cool playing. And Jack You Off kind of rules. I love the cascading vocals in the chorus, crunchy, and it's got a funked up little rockabilly guitar solo in there. Really, where Prince starts using those female backing vocals um, with great effect. And yeah, I just think it's a really fun album. There's not really any weak spots, maybe not quite as many highlights as the 4.5 star stuff, but it's right there with them.
All right, number 7 for me. One of the few albums that I already had a rating for going into this because of the 1982 deep dive. I've got 1999. This is the first record with The Revolution. Definitely don't like the production as much as compared to the two previous records, which I thought the production was great on. A lot more reverb here, muddying things up a little bit. There's obviously some great pop songs here. 1999, Little Red Corvette, Delirious, all just really good songs. I don't care for the approach of like treating every song like a dance single though. I think there's a lot of fat that could have been trimmed from this record. I think you could cut a good 2 minutes from almost every track on the album, and most people would probably barely notice. I think it's good, but it is a lot. And as far as like 80s pop albums go, yeah, definitely for sure. It's really good, but I do not see this record as an all-timer the way so many other people do. So, yeah, for me, if you watched the 82 video, it did not make my top 25 of the year. It's because I only have it at 3.5. And yeah, I do think the move away from like the cold funkiness of Dirty Mind towards a more mainstream pop sound was a smart move, though. I think that is the direction he needed to go in, and yeah, I think he was great at doing pop throughout a lot of the 80s. So it's just like too much. It's too long. Like it's not even that many songs. Why is it so long? Yeah, the songs just go on, and they're some of them are kind of repetitive, and yeah, lose my interest.
All right, for the first time, I think I agree with you. It's 4.5 stars for me. So obviously, I think it's great. It was in my top 10 maybe for 1982. I don't love it as much as many people seem to. Like I saw a lot of 5 stars, perfect 10 from Pitchfork. It's, usually up there with the greatest albums of all time. And it starts off great. 1999, classic, timeless. It's a step, like Jason said, towards that 80s pop sound. It's not it has some of the elements that Controversy did, but it is just like an entirely different beast. It's bigger, it's fancier, it's fuller. There's more people involved with it. It's the first album with the Revolution. So there's Lisa Coleman and Jill Jones and Des Dickerson, who's playing guitar on some of the songs. He actually plays the solos on Little Red Corvette, which is the greatest song ever written about a car, and that is what it's about. Second greatest song ever written about female anatomy. Best song about a car. It's probably top 5 favorite songs of all time for me. I love it more than just pretty much anything in the whole world. I can't even talk about it. The way it emerges from thin air, the anticipation of those synths, the vocals, the way it's produced, so it's a little rougher, a little dirt on there, a little greasier. Prince doesn't play guitar, it's Des Dickerson. There's more backing vocals with Des and Lisa. It just feels a little, I don't know, richer and fuller because of it. Prince just can concentrate everything into wringing every single ounce of sex out of the vocals. That's one of my favorite vocal performances of all time. It's just perfect. The bridge, the "Ooh girl, you got an ass like I've never seen," and the ride. The ride is so smooth. You must be a limousine. Like you talk bad about Prince's lyrics, but that is one of the best lines I think I've ever heard in my entire life. It's literal perfection.
Well, I'm not saying he was never good.
Okay.
He had a
All right,
moment.
fair
He had
enough.
a moment where he was on fire, and then it kind of just
Fair
went. He,
enough.
he thought he could do that, and then some, and he couldn't.
Delirious is great. So out of the gate, you get 3 immaculate pop songs. And then this is where I agree with you. Things get a little too long and dancey. There's just so much added repetition for no reason that I can really discern. I do love Let's Pretend We're Married. It's got a just unshakable groove, hooks for days. Uh, Prince does some awesome keyboard stuff. And then the I sincerely want to fuck the taste out of your mouth. That whole like talking part where he just gets absolutely filthy is just perfect. So that's great. First side or whatever is just perfection. And then you get songs like DSMR and Automatic, which do not need to be as long as they are. I totally agree. They should be like 3, 4 minutes at most, or not even on the album. I think those songs don't have that much of a purpose to them. I just think they're really repetitive. I think Lady Cab Driver, the whole like monologue about sex and he's banging the lady cab driver, whatever. It's a little too much. Something in the Water Does Not Compute's cool. International Lover's good. Free, I think, is pretty underrated. You don't hear anyone ever talk about that. But it just kind of goes on and on. It needs something like a Moonbeam Levels or something, a little more pop song on the second half to just bring things back a little bit. Just something more regular. There's a lot of cool unused cuts that he was doing. If you listen to the 5 album deluxe edition, which I did, there's some really cool stuff in there that probably would have been better than some of the more repetitive automatic DSMR kind of stuff. So I think it's a great album, but I don't think it's quite as good as everyone thinks, and I think it could have done better if he had replaced some tracks with other ones that he wrote around the same time.
All right, number 6 for me, still at 3.5 stars. I've got Controversy. Yeah, for a minute, it seems like Prince had one-upped himself from Dirty Mind. The title track to this rules so hard, so good. Do Me Baby, funky slow jam, incredible vocals. Got like a little extended word section in there. Sexuality and Private Joy, I think, are solid tunes as well. It's kind of hard for me to think of an album, though, with a bigger disparity between sides, I think. He had, in the first side, a record heading towards at least competing for my favorite Prince album. And then the back half of this record tanks so hard. Ronnie Talk to Russia, I think, is just a completely failed attempt at doing a political tune. The punkiness of it to me is just like, I don't know, anyone can do that. And I don't buy it from him. It doesn't fit with the rest of the record. It doesn't, yeah, make sense in context of everything else going on. Just, I don't know. I think it's lousy. Like you said, I don't know what's going on with Annie Christian or why he decided to mix it like that. It sounds bad. um, and then it closes with Jack You Off with, again, those like bouncy, kind of like Nickelodeon sounding synths. And just juxtaposed with those lyrics, it's a choice. Yeah. Great first half, incredible first half. Some of the best music he ever made, I think, is the first side of this record, and then side two is just like completely get rid of it. So it comes out of the 3.5. Ideally, I haven't talked about it yet, but Dirty Mind. I think you take the best of each like best half of each of those. You put those on one record. I think you've got your one of the best records of the '80s, maybe. But yeah, didn't quite come together that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, Prince was never, I think a little bit like Bob Dylan in the 80s. There was some better songs available, some odd choices, but that's what happens when you're a genius from Minnesota, I guess. So, whatever. My number 6, the new discovery of new discoveries. I don't know why I never listened to this album. The Gold Experience from 1995. Friggin' love this one. It is great because it does not care about current trends, I think, at all. It was just whatever. Prince is mixing in everything, Pussy Control or P Control or whatever. But it is a pretty good rap song with a pretty hilarious story to it. The synth sounds are cheap and it all kind of works. Like it's just completely out of control. Just totally NSFW. Don't listen to it at work. But I think it kicks things off in a way that totally disarms you from what's coming next because a lot of this album is his best guitar work since Purple Rain, probably. Endorphin Machine rocks really hard. I think there's some great hooks on it. Shh. Great smooth sex jam. Again, the organic sounding guitar. There's some great organ on it. That shimmer underneath the spazzed out guitars is great. Um, just a badass song. I love the sex appeal, the raunch of it all. It's heavy. Some absolutely killer drums on it as well. Um, Dolphin, which lyrically, I don't know what the hell's going on here. If I came back as a dolphin, and then just rocking guitar. And it's just such a ridiculous song, but the guitar makes it all work. It's got some really cool, I don't know if it's harpsichord in there, but it sounds great. You got Shy, You got 319, which are kind of slower, dirtier, sexy, a little bit of New Jack Swing, a little bit of contemporary R&B in there. And then maybe the piece de resistance for me is I Hate You, which just the whole thing kicks so much ass. It's just this weird Prince in a courtroom versus, his former lover or whatever. And just the lyrics are ridiculous, but the way it all builds and comes together with that organ and guitar, and then the last 40 seconds, just unbelievable guitar solo out of nowhere. Maybe probably top five guitar like sounds in his catalog. Just a rocket ship of a guitar solo. His last top 40 hit, I believe. Um, it was the last single from the album. And then you got Gold, or no, sorry. You got The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, which was all the way up to number three, his last top 10 in the US. Um, and his only number one in the UK, which is bizarre, but great song. Gold closes out the album with a big Purple Rain, but in more positive kind of feel. Just epic ending there. And yeah, the variety on this album is amazing, kind of like a mini Sign of the Times, a little less ambition, but just packed with great tunes, incredible performances, real instrumentation. The drums are awesome. The guitar is absolutely just disgusting. Vocally amazing. I think he works in a more kind of modern sound here with his vocals, but yeah, the falsetto still rocks, just everything. Really surprised at how good this one was because I kind of gave up on Prince, after Diamonds and Pearls. I sort of was like, all right, I think I'm done with Prince. I'm just going to live in the 80s. But I messed up because the Gold Experience kicks a lot of ass.
My number five is the self-titled second album from 1979. I think it sounds way better than For You did. I Want to Be Your Lover, just like an obvious hit the second you hear it. It's got a great groove, incredible vocals. For You felt like it was assembled by one person. I think Prince does a better job here of making like a band feel more believable. Like the instruments on this record seem to be reacting to each other in real time, whereas I think on For You it does feel a little, overdub type of sound. Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad, I think equally great as I Want to Be Your Lover. But then you get a little bit of like you get some generic stuff. Sexy Dancer, I don't think is that great, and you get a few sappy ballads in there. Before you get to Bambi, where he really flexes his rock muscle and shows off some great guitar chops. And he's two for two at this point in his career as far as album closers go. It's Gonna Be Lonely is fantastic. It's a slower, kind of like ballad, but it avoids the sap of the other early ballads in his catalog. So I think about half of this record is stellar. You got three or four songs here that aren't quite up to the same level. If they were, it'd be 4 stars, but it is 3.5 for me.
We're just praying he gets to 4 stars before Purple Rain, which you probably knocked down to 3.5. We'll see. We'll see. All right, my number five is gonna be Parade, which I was up and down on, but I came back to solid 4.5 stars. And critically, kind of a rebound after Around the World in a Day, which confused and outraged a lot of people. Um, Everybody loves Parade except Jason. NME's album of the year, Chris Gow, Village Voice, all great. The first half of the record is a little odd, I'll give you that. Kind of like a series of vignettes, a couple like 2 minute sort of like interludes, songs that aren't fully formed, but I think they're very cool sounding, some cool ideas. I don't mind that they're shorter, a little less substantial. I think the album could be better arranged, and I wouldn't do it like Prince did, which the intro, side one is called Intro, which kind of gives it away. It's not quite these fully fleshed songs. Christopher Tracy Parade kind of that thick kitchen sink psychedelic sound carrying over from Around the World in a Day. This is the last album with the Revolution credited. So you get a lot of Lisa and Susan Melvoin and Wendy Coleman. Some interesting like new position has like steel drums, tropical funk sounding. Under the Cherry Moon's very loungy, crooning like a snooty British aristocat. Girls and Boys, wonky, funky pop. Feel like there's a lot of like European sheen to most of the first half. Life Can Be So Nice has some flutes and it's strange. Side two though, aka end, intro and end. That's all you get on this album apparently. With Do You Lie, Kiss, Another Love, A Hole in Your Head, and Sometimes It Snows in April and Mountains. I forget if I said Mountains. About as good as a side as you're gonna get anywhere. I think Mountains is his most underrated song, his most underrated single. It only went to number 40 or something, number 30, 20. It did not reach the heights of Kiss, but I think it's just awesome, big anthemic, powerful, heavy pop, driving beat, super catchy, a big, thick mess of horns and guitar. Kiss, all-timer, sparse, austere, danceable, but indelibly catchy pop. So much not going on in the song, which makes it stand out even more. There's just so much space to it, which is cool. Another Love, A Hole in Your Head, another kind of forgotten single from this album, only went to number 63. Darker, minor key pop, but a great funky staccato bass line, big upfront drum machine, um, melancholic, but incredible piano, great string arrangement, great backing vocals from Susanna Melvoin. And one of those songs, her vocals are so intertwined and integral to the drama of the song. Just love the way they're arranged there. And Sometimes It Snows in April, one of the saddest, most ornate ballads in Prince's catalog. Great vocal performance. I think if the album was arranged a little more evenly, it would have a little more impact because you do have like all the big songs kind of in a row. But I don't mind it. I think it's a very good 4.5 star album.
Okay, number 4 for me is Dirty Mind. I think this is a bold shift for him, really embracing the sexuality, that side of him coming out in a big way. He hinted at it on the first two records, but really, really shows up here. Super cool production on this, cold and detached, really dry for this kind of like 80s dance pop, and I think it really stands out in this era, the way it sounds. When You Were Mine shows his ability to craft pop songs kind of outside of R&B and funk and disco and that world, which the first two records really existed in. That's a song you could almost imagine like a Rick Springfield or someone covering. It's got like a little bit of a power pop kind of feel to it. Got a Broken Heart Again has a cool shuffle to it, almost like a little bit of a Rosanna shuffle. I very much wanted this to be my number one because I love the sound, I love the style of it. He just takes it a little too far a couple times with Head and Sister, and yeah, I don't know. It doesn't fall apart quite as drastically as Controversy does, but I think the first half is much, much stronger than the second half. And it does also feel a little slight at only 30 minutes. But I also think it's a very important part of his evolution, very unique, and yeah, I do love the sound of it. So a strong 3.5.
Okay, my last 4.5 star album, an album that I've always been mixed on, but I've learned to love. Around the World in a Day from 1985, which I've always been mad at this album for not being Purple Rain 2. And I think that's forgivable because I think that's kind of how everyone was feeling about it at the time when it was released in 85. I mean, there's still songs from Purple Rain on the pop charts. Um, and it just doesn't like I wanted another arena rock album, and this is not it. I don't think in any real way. It's very hodgepodgey as far as the sounds go. It jumps around. Raspberry Beret, which was the big single, and it's literally a perfect song. There's like no notes about it. It's unbelievable. It has that Purple Rain sound because it was written before this album. It was sort of a holdover, a carryover from Purple Rain. The rest of the album's not like that at all. Um, Around the World in a Day, the title cut, hazy, psychedelic. Same with Paisley Park. Some flutes and sort of odd sounds coming in. It doesn't feel like a pop song. Definitely not arena pop, definitely not arena rock. It's not really funky, it's not really R&B. It's just kind of this new style that Prince was working in, sort of as a direct, I don't want to be the world's biggest pop star in the world anymore. So that was sort of the impetus for this album. I like Condition of the Heart, nice jazzy ballad. Tambourine, super weird, just kind of herky-jerky stuff. America, good political screed, but probably my least favorite song on the album. You get some tracks like The Ladder, which has a amazing, great gospel, jazzy feel to it. I don't love spoken word, but Prince pulls it off better than I think any artist in the history of music. So you can do it, that little spoken intro, then everything comes in. It's beautiful. Temptation. I love that, like, I don't know, Van Halen-esque guitar intro. And then it kind of explodes into this big, loungy, jazzy number. And at the end, he's talking to God, which you're not supposed to do in music. Never supposed to have a conversation with God. But it's interesting enough and sort of, you don't always believe it, but with Prince and the way he kind of embraces religion after this, kind of a whole sea change in his being and his, songwriting style. So it's kind of cool that he has that on tape there. It's not really God talking to him, but that's a good fake. And yes, I do really like this album now. I've grown to really think it's great. So shot up. It's probably going to be in the top five for 1985 when we do the deep dive next year.
Number three for me.
Mm. Musicology, 3121. I don't even know what's left.
3121. Debuted at number one, his only album to do so during his life. Um, and I think it builds a lot on like the things that musicology did right. I think it's a pretty seamless fusion of like modern aesthetics and production and classic Prince influence. I think Lolita is a good example of that. That synth, I think, is the closest like sound like to Purple Rain that he had used in a long time. Kind of calling back, which he didn't do often. Te Amo Corazon, I think, is a cool song. A really weird first single, but a cool track nonetheless. A different style for him, putting in some of that Latin flavor. Black Sweat, definite highlight, a futuristic funk workout, but taking the Dove's Cry and Kiss approach of no bass again, and it works. Some auto tune on Incense and Candles, but not overdone. I think it's pretty tasteful. Satisfied is a great old school kind of soul tune that I think is really good. I think, between this and musicology, which I think are kind of similar in some ways. Obviously, I'm giving the edge to the other one, but this does kind of feel more like a full return to his artistry in some ways. I think it's got a little more variety and maybe it feels a little more cutting edge and like a little more engaged with the present day than musicology does. Um, yeah, very strong, pretty consistent throughout. 3.5 star, solid late period record.
Okay. Yeah, probably if you're at 3.5 stars, I should be at like 6 stars for that one. So I probably underrated that a little bit. Number three, and only three 5-star albums for Prince, which I feel like people expected like 12 5 stars from me, but not a simp. I'm just, I think he's the best songs artist of all time, albums wise. You know, he was just so all over the place. I know more so than on Sign of the Times. This is just sprawling, the bajillion different styles. Every song seems like it's a completely different tune from a completely different period of his songwriting. And I always underrate how good this album is when I'm not listening to it. Every time I look at like my 1987 album rankings, I'm like, I like Sign of the Times, but maybe I like, Bad more. Maybe I like Pleased to Meet Me more. No. This is way better than those albums. Everything he does here is just so like taken to the limit. You have something as ridiculous as Housequake sharing space with it and Starfish and Coffee, which is this cutesy pop song, and Slow Love, which is this cabaret style vocal jazz number, or Hot Thing, which is this sparse groover. You got The Look, which is like pure 80s pop, the title track, which I think does a great job of integrating, political and societal concerns with some just unbelievable guitar playing. You got the Camille stuff with If You Were My Girlfriend, a song like Strange Relationship, which was written, I think, in 83. I Could Never Take Your Place of Your Man, which maybe his best, just like pure pop, like big, fun sounding song. The Cross is like grungy, this gruff, distorted guitar all over it, this big rock beat, a huge build, a slow crescendo. It's going to be a beautiful night, which brings back the Revolution for this live sounding fun jam section. Adore is just like a regular ass Prince's Lothario R&B kind of 70s sounding, no sped up voices, just classic Prince falsetto to close out the album. And yeah, and it's just the absolute astounding creativity, the range of styles, the way he can be so weird on a song like If I Was Your Girlfriend, to be off color on a song like Ballad of Dorothy Parker, where he's doing all the spoken word and the whole, take a bath with my pants on. It's just so oddball. But he maintains his sex appeal, his ear for hooks, his daring, the Camille stuff. I don't know. I don't know. You don't like it, and there are some like very stock sounding like Fairlight samples and like the Lindrum stuff, but I don't know. To me, like just the way it all works together to show off, the kaleidoscope, the rainbow of everything that Prince does, is just so impressive. And yeah, it's a very, very high 5-star album for me.
Don't get it at all. Uh, my number two is Musicology, and you described it as a regular album, and it is, and that's what I like about it. Um, yeah, so I mean, I don't know. He's all over the place throughout his career. It's nice to have him just like write some good songs again, and that's basically what this is. Just a nice return. It's the most that songwriting has felt central to what he's doing in a long time, where there's not like some other angle of like it's a jazz record or it's, whatever. But yeah, just good songs. And I think a few legit like banger, like even worthy of top song consideration here. So Call My Name, I think, is a great tune, has a really good chorus. Cinnamon Girl, really strong, not on the level of Neil's, but a fun pop song, great solo on that as well. On the Couch has like the D'Angelo vibe, maybe thanks to Blackwell on the drums, and he's singing in that super high falsetto. He sounds great. Dear Mr. Man has a really nasty groove to it that I love. I think Reflections a really solid tune to close the record. It's just good songs, and that's what's missing from a lot of the other stuff. Like he's a great player and he's a great performer, and he's got this character, and but he doesn't always write the best songs, and here he writes a lot of really good ones. It's consistent. There's not huge dips in quality. There's not like weird songs out of place. It feels like an album. All the songs kind of work together well. And yeah, it just works. It's really close to 4 stars. It's a high 3.5 for me.
Oh my. All right, my number two, it can't be Purple Rain. So it's got to be Dirty Mind, which I just think is pretty much perfection. I don't know if he invented, bedroom pop, but he kind of does here. It's, basement pop since he recorded the album in his basement of his house in Minneapolis. And it's so, I remember the first time I listened to this and I was like, what the hell is this? Because I had heard Prince, I had heard Purple Rain in 1999, and it comes in with Dirty Mind and it's so stripped back. There's almost no, I don't even know if there's an effect on his guitar. And he's just like strumming away over this disco beat with Dirty Mind. And it just doesn't sound anything else like, doesn't sound like anything else in his catalog. And it's just such a change up. It's so surprising. Um, but I just think it works on every single level. Um, he drops a lot of the disco. He brings in some new wave elements, keeps the falsetto, plenty of funk here. But these songs are incredibly explicit, gender bending, dirty, confusing. Head and Sister are just two of the dirtiest tracks you will ever hear from anyone in any era. Um, but musically, I think everything here is exquisite. When You Were Mine is basically a new wave track played by one person, and it sounds like he just recorded it in his, garage. Um, Dirty Mind, like I said, it's a disco track that sounds like, just some dude recorded it, but it's got so many good hooks. The bridge where he kind of like starts getting angry and just ramps it up on his vocals is one of my favorite parts of his whole discography. Head is just slow and throbbing. Sister is this fast and loose. Like, is this Game of Thrones? Like, what the hell's going on lyrically? Um, I'm going to pretend that's a character. I don't know what the real story behind that is, but incest is involved. But outside of that, I think everything else pretty perfect. A little bit of political stuff on Party Up, Uptown. It's got a really danceable beat, but it comes with this great chorus. Do It All Night, Got a Broken Heart Again. Super catchy, kind of easy to digest pop numbers. And yeah, it's just a perfect album. It's different from everything else he did. It's 30 minutes long. It's not overdone. It's not over long. Just kicks butt. My second favorite album of 1980. My second favorite Prince album.
Well, we've got another bifecta. How many bifectas in a row is that? I feel it feels like a few.
Too many. It's too many.
It's Purple Rain. Kind of takes what 1999 was doing and fixes every single one of its issues. It sounds better. It's not as reverb soaked and muddy sounding. It's got stronger hooks, as good as the hooks on 1999 are. I think, the ones here are even better. All the fat is trimmed pretty much. Just a really, really strong pop album, really well constructed. It could be attached to a soundtrack or not. You wouldn't know the difference if you're just listening to the record. I Would Die For You made my 1984 song list, I'm pretty sure. Um, but I also love Take Me With You, Computer Blue, When Doves Cry, obviously the title track. And that's an example of like it's 8 minutes and 42 seconds. Like you can stretch out. Not every song has to be 3.5 minutes. That's not what I'm saying, but you got to pick your spots and it's got to make sense. And that song being 8 minutes and 42 seconds on an album with other shorter songs makes total sense and it totally works. Darling Nikki is great. It pulls in some of that Dirty Mind era lyricism, but finds a little better balance, I think, and doesn't push the envelope quite as far, and it works. Yeah, just his touch is just right on this one. He gets all the ingredients right, and he does get it to 4 stars. I did not drop it.
Thank God. Yes, Purple Rain is the best Prince album. The best album of 1984. It's probably the best album of all time. And I do think it will be pretty much universally regarded every time they release one of these greatest 100, 200, 500 albums of all time. Purple Rain invariably, indelibly keeps creeping closer to number one. Wasn't it number one on the Apple list? It was number one on somebody's. Number two.
No, Apple had Lauryn Hill #1.
That's right. Somebody's list is number one. On my list is number one. And I don't know, it doesn't really need to be much more said about the album. Prince just on top of the world. It was number one on Billboard for 24 weeks. It's the third longest of all time, tied with a couple albums after Thriller and Rumors. It to me, and I think to a lot of people, is just the perfect synthesis of that pop songcraft spectacle and artistry, and the way Prince works in heavy metal and arena rock and funk and synth pop and R&B into a seamless package. Every song could be a single, and yet I don't think there any compromise with like his artistic credibility to make these songs. Like there's nothing super safe here, except maybe the duet with Sheena Easton, "Take Me With You." But I think even that's a pretty great ballad. And he shows off his guitar work. Um, the whole band is super hot. The backing vocals, Wendy and Lisa, and everything that they do, I think is just integrated perfectly. The it's perfectly sequenced. Opening with "Let's Go Crazy," which is just has one of the greatest intros in history of music, I think. And then closing with "Purple Rain," just a complete showstopper. Yeah, I just think it is perfection. I wouldn't change anything about it. He wrote a bunch of other songs of the same year that you can hear on the deluxe editions. I just wouldn't change anything about it. Like he got everything right. He never quite did that again. I think he always sort of had these weird Prince isms where he had to have something just so off kilter on an album that maybe knocked it down a little bit for me, but not Purple Rain. It is perfection. It is 5 stars. Perfect 10.
All right, there it is. 40 Prince albums. Any last words?
Um, just like I've been saying, I think he's the best singles artist ever. He had he had a song on the Billboard charts from 1978 until 1995. It's a lot of eras to go through. And I think he was a total madman, total genius. Would have liked to see him just bring in a couple more outsiders every once in a while. He never did get that like super late period, that Bob Dylan like fourth generation period, like come back, come back, come back part because he died way too soon. But yeah, I just think his legacy and his ability to create a pop single unmatched.
So for me, I respect him a lot. I think he was an incredible musician. Just like flowed out of him. Maybe a little too easily, like I said. Uh, Brilliant guitarist, keyboardist, just all around incredible musician. I think he's an incredible performer. I really wish I could have seen him live before he passed away. Um, I don't think he's like a genius songwriter though, and I think that's his big flaw. I don't think his not and that's not to say he never wrote great songs. There's a bunch of great songs, but I think he's kind of like a normal ability songwriter with incredible musical chops. That's where I land with Prince. But let us know what you think of Prince and what you think of our lists. I'm gonna get roasted on this one, I'm aware, but that's fine. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching. Check the video description for a link to Patreon and social media, merch. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.